So, North Korea threatens to nuke the United States so much that at this point, uh, basically, I think, you know, people just kind of brush it off to the side. It's just like some crazy homeless person you see walking, as you're walking by the street or something. You just don't really pay attention to it. So, uh, and by it, I mean, North Korean threats in general, not that I would refer to a homeless person as an it. Just saying. And so North Korea, they've always just come out and we want to destroy America. They're crazy. They're just crazy. It's basically a hereditary dictatorship that rules over a bunch of starving people with a bunch of World War II era military technology running around saying that they're going to nuke everybody. I mean, it's really a joke. But the rhetoric has definitely ratcheted up recently, and that is detailed very well in an article from The Sun. Kim Jong-un. Kim Jong-un vows to reduce the U.S. to ashes with nuke strike if Donald Trump fires even a single bullet at North Korea. And I can assure little fat man on Pyongyang, in Pyongyang, that it would be much more than a bullet. Kim Jong-un threatened to reduce the U.S. to ashes as tensions with North Korea continue to increase. The secretive state released a statement earlier this month warning Donald Trump of nuclear destruction if America fires, quote, even a single bullet towards Pyongyang. The statement said, the Korean People's Army will reduce the bases of aggression and provocation to ashes with its invincible Hwasong rockets tipped with nuclear warheads and reliably defend the security of the country and its people's happiness in case the U.S. and South Korean puppet forces fire even a single bullet at the territory of the DPRK. The menacing talk came as South Korea warned that its neighbor's latest rocket engine test showed meaningful progress. The North's KCNA news agency said on Sunday the engine would help the country achieve world-class satellite launch capability, indicating a new type of rocket engine for intercontinental ballistic missile. For an intercontinental ballistic missile, rather. It's a mouthful. Trump and members of his administration have been talking tough on North Korea since the Republican took office back in January. Last week, the president's Secretary of State Rex Tillerson announced the policy of strategic patience, quote-unquote, was over and refused to rule out military action, including, they have said, a potential first strike. I think they've got special forces or Navy SEALs. They're basically in South Korea, pretty much ready to, take out the leadership of North Korea if need be. Donald Trump also basically stationed nuclear bombers, I think, in South Korea as well. And pretty much, if, North Korea did actually attempt something, if they even got the chance to get that far, first of all, whatever it was would probably be stopped, and they would, bare minimum, the North Korean leadership would be completely eradicated. North Korea is not the problem. The problem is China, and it depends greatly on what China does. Basically, what would happen if we did, say, take out the leadership, we did take out Kim Jong-un, we did just assassinate him and the other leadership, which I think is probably the best move, really. The ball would be in China's court at that point. So, we will see. We will see what happens. We're definitely at some very tense, times right now, for sure, geopolitically. And the article goes on here. The diplomatic and other efforts of the past 20 years to bring North Korea to a point of denuclearization have failed, so we have 20 years of a failed approach. And this was Rex Tillerson still. And that includes a period in which the U.S. provided $1.35 billion in assistance to North Korea as an encouragement to take a different pathway. He added, if they elevate the threat of their weapons program to a level we believe requires action, that option is on the table. Meanwhile, fearing imminent attack, Japan has begun staging mass evacuation drills. The first exercise of its kind saw civilians young and old scrambling for cover as air raid sirens wailed. As previously reported, Japanese civil defense officials have published pamphlets outlining emergency measures in the event of a nuclear war. And, there was a North Korean missile that actually wound up landing, I believe, off the coast of Japan somewhere. It was pretty close to Japan, and it was definitely an act of aggression. It was taken too far. That's something that they definitely should not do. So that definitely raised a very large red flag for Japan. And now you see that they're doing these drills. So for sure, the situation in North Korea is pretty crazy. It's pretty intense. They're coming out, saying that they will, basically nuke us if a single bullet is fired. They're, shooting missiles by Japan. They're doing all sorts of stuff that is bringing it to the point where something might need to be done. Like I said, in my point of view, I think basically an assassination of Kim Jong-un and the, whatever other leadership needs to be taken out military-wise in North Korea. Honestly, I think it should just happen. Because when you look at the people of North Korea and what the dictatorship of Kim Jong-un, that family dynasty, has put upon the people of North Korea, it is absolutely atrocious. The people are basically starving to death, and the leadership in that country, the quote-unquote leadership in that country, does absolutely nothing to help alleviate it. They rely on other countries to basically somewhat feed their people, and yet they want to talk about running around nuking everybody all the time. So, it's crazy. It's all crazy, and we'll see what happens. Like I said, China's response to what we do is way more of a threat than North Korea itself. That being said, China, I believe, militarily and in other ways, is a lot more of a paper tiger than people think. It's definitely probably one of the biggest threats to us out there, but I think people can tend to overestimate the military and, frankly, financial capabilities of China. But that is definitely for another time. So, that being said, we will now move on to an article from Conservative Review. And so James Comey, good old James Comey, good old FBI Director James Comey, got kept on. He was during I think he was a Barack Obama appointee. He was the FBI Director when Obama was president. And Trump actually decided to keep him on. He left him on. A lot of people were kind of wondering why, me included, to a degree. I mean, when you look at the way Comey handled the scandal with Hillary Clinton, it was all over the place. It was handled very poorly, and I just don't think the guy's a very good FBI director, to be honest. I think he should probably find another job. He really doesn't seem to do all that well, and it's funny because no one really likes the guy. I mean, conservatives don't like him, and liberals don't like him either, kind of because he's flip-flopped on so many things, especially when you look at the email investigation. So kind of everybody hates Comey. And he's testifying right now about the Trump-Russia connection. And there was a revelation, quote unquote, that was made during this, and this article sums that up. Comey's testimony just killed the Russian election hacking false narrative. If you believe malicious Russian agents hacked the 2016 U.S. presidential election and changed votes in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and other traditionally blue states to hand the election to Donald Trump, you were just sorely disappointed. Testifying before the House Intelligence Committee Monday morning, NSA Director Admiral Michael Rogers and FBI Director James Comey stated unequivocally that there was no evidence the Russians manipulated election machines to rig the vote. And this was already known. Earlier, I think it was in January, I believe, the FBI put out their document, basically, on their unclassified report, if you will, on the Russian interference in the election. And in it, it stated very clearly that they believe the Russians, quote unquote, had access to certain electoral systems, but weren't actually able to get into the systems and actually change any votes. They admitted it in that report months ago that that didn't happen. So this really isn't news, but it's being reported like it is. So I just wanted to make that clear. Asked by Representative Devin Nunes, Republican California, if there was any intelligence to suggest the vote tallies in several states were tampered with, Admiral Rogers stated, "No, sir." He prefaced the comment with with an explanation that the National Security Agency would not be the best agency to answer that question, as they focus on foreign, not domestic intelligence. FBI Director Comey answered no to the same question. It's clear now that the government has zero evidence to suggest that the vote was rigged. This is not to say the Russians were uninvolved in attempting to influence the election. Yeah, Putin had his army of trolls, apparently. FBI Director James Comey confirmed Monday that the Bureau is investigating Russian attempts to interfere in the 2016 presidential election, including any links between members of the Donald Trump campaign for president and the Russians. So that was the big revelation in this. Not so much the hacking thing, because most of the mainstream media is not going to really pick that up, because that doesn't fit the sorts of narratives that they like to put out there. But he did admit that they are actually doing an investigation into Donald Trump and the Trump campaign in regards to possible collusion with the Russian government, basically. So this was the thing that became, big news. And all these different news organizations, more liberal-leaning news organizations, are coming out and saying that this discredits, Donald Trump even more, because, of course, he had the infamous tweet a while ago saying that basically Obama, quote-unquote, wiretapped him in Trump Tower. There's a lot of confusion around what he actually meant by that. If you take it literally, that Barack Obama, directly ordered a wiretapping of Trump Tower, and to be clear, it's not even, we don't even know if there was wiretapping in Trump Tower. It's actually looking like there might not have been, at least at this point in time. It's really hard to even start to get to the bottom of any of this, by the way. But so it's all crazy right now. They're saying that this discredits him because he said that he was wiretapped. And yeah, if you take it literally, no, that probably didn't happen. But that doesn't necessarily need to be the case. These are political appointees. When you're talking about the head of the CIA or whatever, these are going to be people that the president, in that case President Obama, appointed to follow through on, agendas that he would want, followed through on. It's going to be appointees that reflect the agenda, at least to a degree, to the degree that it, quote unquote, should be acceptable, at least for whatever given department they're in. They're going to fit with that president's agenda. So it doesn't necessarily need to be the case that Loretta Lynch, the Attorney General, got orders from Barack Obama or something like that. Again, we don't really know exactly what happened. Very little came out in this testimony. But the key takeaway that I want to say is that they're trying to say that this completely discredits Trump. But we know there was surveillance. We know that there was surveillance of at least people like Mike Flynn, and that this, one way or another, he was surveilled, whether it was at Trump Tower, whether it was using a FISA court warrant or other means. He was surveilled, and this stuff is being leaked to the press, which is the big scandal that the media really isn't paying attention to. And it's a serious problem. You've got political appointees, unelected bureaucrats, actively trying to undermine the President of the United States. It's a big deal. And all the media is worried about is trying to discredit Donald Trump's, tweet. I mean, some people are even coming out saying that he could get impeached for saying that, which is absurd. Calm down, guys. You're not going to impeach Donald Trump on his Twitter feed. Let me just assure you of that. But this article here from The Hill really sums it up. White House. No evidence of Trump-Russia collusion. The White House on Monday asserted there is no evidence that President Trump's associates colluded with Russia to interfere in the 2016 election after FBI Director James Comey confirmed a Bureau investigation. Quote, nothing has changed, a White House official wrote in an email. Quote, senior Obama intelligence officials have gone on record to confirm that there is no evidence of Trump-Russia collusion and there is no evidence of a Trump-Russia scandal, which is actually true. That's absolutely true. The head of the House Intelligence Committee, Devin Nunes, has said he's looked at all the available information so far and that there aren't even phone calls, concerning the individuals under investigation or potentially under investigation that would even possibly could even be construed as, activities that a Russian agent would be involved in. He says there's nothing there. He's listened to it all. This is the head of the House Intelligence Committee. And other people have come out, including Democrats, and said that, there's really nothing there. But this article tries to say that because James Comey came out, the FBI director, and said that there was an investigation that they were doing, that somehow that discredits this. It just doesn't make sense. He's not saying that there wasn't an investigation. He's saying that there's no evidence. Yeah, they can investigate all they want. They haven't found anything. They haven't found anything. And there's been no real evidence brought forward that would show Russian collusion. Absolutely none. And this article somehow tries to make this connection between this White House statement and what Comey said and say that it completely discredits the Trump administration. It's really bizarre. So Comey's explosive revelation came earlier Monday morning, ended months of speculation about whether the federal government is probing Trump's campaign and challenged the president's repeated efforts to downplay the team's involvement with Moscow. But the White House is pointing to statements made by former CIA Chief Michael Morrell and James Clapper, former President Obama's top intelligence official, that they have seen no evidence of collusion between Trump associates and Russians. And again, and also, you could add the head of the House Intelligence Committee to that list. Ahead of the House Intelligence panel hearing where Comey confirmed the probe, Trump tweeted the Russia story is, quote, fake news and everybody knows it. And, they're saying that it's an explosive revelation that there was an investigation into the Trump campaign. that's a bizarre, thing to me. This isn't news. The only way that they could have had legally, and even in that case maybe not. The only way that they could even potentially legally, have transcripts and phone calls from Michael Flynn, who was then the incoming national security advisor, lining up phone calls with the Russian ambassador, his foreign counterpart, totally normal activity. The only way that they could have been monitoring that is if there was an investigation or a FISA warrant or surveillance of some sort, and you would think the FBI would be involved in that. I mean, or at least know what was going on. So, I mean, it's bizarre that they're coming out and saying that this is some kind of a revelation when really this is just confirming what we already knew, really. And then Trump tweeted, "The Democrats made up and pushed the Russian story as an excuse for running a terrible campaign, big advantage in Electoral College, and lost," he added. Comey's description of the situation, however, is at odds with Trump's. He said the Justice Department authorized him to publicly acknowledge the probe's existence. Quote, "I can promise you we will follow the facts wherever they lead," Comey said. The FBI director repeatedly declined to provide more details about the investigation, including which Trump officials are being targeted. The inquiry, which he said began last July, will determine whether any crimes were committed. So this inquiry began last July. The FBI started investigating the Trump campaign, officials in the Trump campaign. And that was right around the time when you look at the January 20th New York Times article, and then there was a National Review article and others that were saying in June, or I think in June, there was a FISA court application to monitor Trump, to try to monitor Trump. And then supposedly, according to the reports that I read, that was shot down, and then they tried to get another FISA court application in October, and the one in October was for Trump associates, Roger Stone, Carter Page, Paul Manafort, those guys, who may have been included in the first one, but the second application was, according to the reports, National Review, it was more broad, the first one, and then it got narrowed down. It was declined the first time, got narrowed down, and then it was accepted, in October to surveil these people. But this is saying that the FBI was investigating him in July last year. So, again, I mean, it really does just sort of add, to the confusion in some ways. I mean, we know that they were, monitoring phone calls, and they were surveilling at least some members of the Trump campaign. When exactly, that started, we didn't really know until now. But it's funny that this investigation in July last year lines up right about the time that first FISA court application in June last year, supposedly was brought forward. So again, there's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of speculation. There's still a lot that we don't know, but at this point, we can almost say for certain. I mean, we can say for certain, basically, that there were illegal leaks. The monitoring of Michael Flynn and possibly others may have been unwarranted in and of itself, because when you're talking about an American citizen, which Flynn was, you're supposed to do things to mask the identity of that person, which it seems wasn't properly followed procedurally. So, there are some serious issues. This could have been a witch hunt. This looks like it probably was a complete witch hunt. and then you've got officials in the intelligence community actively, through leaks to the media, trying to undermine the President of the United States. So it's a big deal, you know, whether or not Obama himself was directly involved. Who knows? Maybe that'll come out, maybe that won't. But for sure, the people that leaked this stuff need to be brought to justice. I mean, that's traitorous activity. You know, that's sedition. That's some serious stuff. You can get in real trouble for that. Those are serious felonies. So, you know, we'll see what happens. Bottom line is, you can't have unelected bureaucrats openly trying to undermine the President of the United States. I don't care who he is. So, with that out of the way, we now move on to an article from the Daily Wire. Now, Neil Gorsuch. He is Donald Trump's pick for the Supreme Court justice to replace the late Antonin Scalia and tilt the scales in favor of conservatives on the Supreme Court. Right now, it's basically a 4-4 split between what you could basically classify as liberal and conservative judges. To a degree, there's some overlap, but this is a big deal. And this was a big test for a lot of people when it comes to Donald Trump, and picking Neil Gorsuch, who is an originalist, somebody who thinks the Constitution means what it says and will apply the law according, you know, to that thought process. So, a great pick. I mean, he's just, you know, you probably couldn't have made a better pick, really. This guy is going to be an amazing Supreme Court justice. And this single-handed move may have very well, among other things, you know, saved our Second Amendment. I mean, seriously. So, the Democrats, of course, they're freaking out. He's going through his confirmation hearings right now, Neil Gorsuch is. The Democrats are freaking out. They're saying, you know, he's the worst, you know, thing ever. He wants to, you know, get rid of women's rights, and he wants to, you know, discriminate against LGBT people, and just all the usual same stuff that you hear over and over and over again, just trying to demonize the guy. And there's a little problem with that. From the Daily Wire, flashback. 10 years ago, not a single Democrat opposed Gorsuch. Well, would you look at that? Now that the nomination of Judge Neil Gorsuch is finally before the Judiciary Committee, it is good to harken back to Senate Mitch McConnell's tweet from February 1st. Quote, "Not a single Democrat opposed Neil Gorsuch's confirmation in 2006. I hope and expect that all senators will again give him a fair consideration." I wouldn't count on it, Mitch. The assaults from Democrats notwithstanding, even left-leaning Politico, PolitiFact, minced no words regarding McConnell's assertion, simply rating it true. And you don't see that too often. On May 10th, 2006, Gorsuch was nominated by President George W. Bush and approved by unanimous consent by the Senate for a seat on the Court of Appeals. Colorado Democratic Senator Ken Salazar remarked, quote, "I have recently met with Mr. Gorsuch and believe he has impressive credentials." The Denver Post acknowledged that Gorsuch's approval at the Senate Judiciary Committee hearing on June 21st came swiftly. Once his nomination reached the Senate, even hard leftist Senator Patrick Leahy offered, quote, "I am pleased that the Republican leadership has scheduled debate and consideration of these nominations, and am glad that the Republican leadership is taking notice of the fact that we can cooperate on swift consideration and confirmation of nominations. Working together, we can confirm our judges today." That quote nowadays would be, no, anything but him. He's the worst thing ever. He's terrible. I remember, gosh, I forget who it was. Someone brought up the point that the Democrats are so opposed to all these appointments by Donald Trump that someone said it would have been funny if Donald Trump would have just appointed the Barack Obama appointee, Merrick Garland, and you know, see what would have happened. They probably would have demonized him even. Actually, you know, that would have just maybe made the Democrats go haywire. They just would not have known what to do. They can't support the guy even if they want him because Donald Trump picked him, basically, is what that would amount to, and it would cause some serious craziness to ensue, I'm sure. But bottom line is, they're absolutely being obstructionist at this point. I mean, there's no other way around it. You know, this is obstructionism. This is the Democrats trying to stall the Trump administration, you know, in any way that they can for as long as they can. And it's a problem. It's a problem because they're putting their own political agenda in front of, you know, in some cases, actually being able to have a functioning government. So it's completely ridiculous. Hopefully we can get past this. Hopefully we can get Gorsuch on there. I mean, there's no hopefully. It's going to happen one way or another. I think it might come down to Mitch McConnell having to grow a pair. So I guess, you know, who knows, but there's no reason why he shouldn't be confirmed. And the article goes on, according to a transcript of the July 20th, 2006 Senate meeting, no senator objected to Gorsuch. The voice vote consisted of one person saying aye with no objections. The Senate included old Chuck Schumer, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, and Harry Reid. So, in 2006, he was fine. There was no problems. He was great. He was a great bipartisan pick to uphold justice and the Constitution. Now, he's this horrible person who wants to get rid of rights for basically everybody in the intersectionality spectrum, or everyone on the list of the oppression Olympics, basically. I mean, it's ridiculous, the level of pandering. It's absolutely insane. And it just goes to show, it just goes to highlight the absolute total hypocrisy and moral bankruptcy of so many politicians, period. But man, I gotta say, a lot of these people, at least especially right now in this political climate on the left, are really showing themselves to be some pieces of work. So now we move on to an article from InfoWars. NSA documents prove surveillance of Donald Trump and his family. Bombshell discovery shows targets of NSA's Project Dragnet. Now, this may or may not be true. I just want to preface this. But if this is true, and I mean, the source of it is fairly credible. I mean, hate or love InfoWars, you know, I don't really care. I get information from a wide range of sources, and I've gotten a lot of good information from InfoWars. So if you hate InfoWars, sorry. But again, this may or may not be true. If it turns out it is, this would be quite bombshell. Infowars.com have obtained credible information from law enforcement sources regarding individual records of U.S. citizens under National Security Agency electronic surveillance in the years 2004 through 2010, a database that suggests both Donald J. Trump and Alex Jones were under illegal, unauthorized government monitoring during those years. Michael Zullo, formerly the commander and chief investigator of the Cold Case Posse, a special investigative group created in 2006 in the office of Joseph M. Arpaio, formerly the sheriff in Maricopa County, an Arizona state certified law enforcement agency headquartered in Phoenix, Arizona, provided sections of the database to Infowars.com. The electronic surveillance database provided by Zullo by a whistleblower in 2013 was apparently created by the NSA as part of the NSA's illegal and unconstitutional Project Dragnet electronic surveillance of U.S. citizens, first revealed by news reports published in 2005, as further documented by the revelations of whistleblower Edward Snowden in 2013. Sheriff Arpaio and Chief Investigator Zullo have identified dozens of entries at various addresses including both Trump Tower in New York City and Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida, under which Donald Trump was apparently under NSA's electronic surveillance from 2004, during President George W. Bush's term of office, through 2009, the first year of Obama's presidency. So, I mean, that's just bizarre. I mean, why in the world would Obama be spying on Donald Trump way back in the day? Who knows? There are people out there who think that he's basically, sort of under, in secret has been basically preparing to run for president, and had a lot of this anti-globalist, rhetoric, and sort of nationalist rhetoric, and whatever else. So, who knows? Again, this may be true, this may not be true. That would be hilarious, though, because that technically would make his tweet right. Because if they spied on Trump Tower, hey, he never said when they spied on Trump Tower, right? So, the article goes on. The Project Dragnet database suggests Trump was under surveillance not only for phone conversations, but also for financial information, including most likely bank account transactions, credit card transactions, and tax filings. Sheriff Arpaio and Chief Investigator Zullo are prepared to share relevant information with the appropriate federal law enforcement agencies, including the FBI, as well as the Department of Justice, Homeland Security Department, the White House, and members of Congress, and the Project Dragnet database in whole or in part as it pertains to NSA electronic surveillance of Donald J. Trump and his various employees. Sheriff Arpaio and Chief Investigator Zullo also show up in the database, listed as being under both phone and financial surveillance. Zullo explained that he and Arpaio came in contact with the information from Operation Dragnet during an unrelated investigation that began in October 2013 and ended January 2015. A whistleblower by the name of Dennis Montgomery brought forward information that Montgomery alleges was collected while he was employed as a subcontractor for the NSA, working on various surveillance projects. Court documents do verify Montgomery was contracted by the NSA, in part to develop computer breaching software that has been utilized in government mass surveillance operations targeting American citizens without legal justification. And so I guess this guy's credibility has been called into question, this Montgomery guy, for whatever reason. And look, putting that guy aside, he did work for the NSA, apparently, and he very well may have been able to have obtained this information, and to, he very well may have obtained it and put it out there. It's possible. We know the Snowden leaks, that's what they revealed. They revealed that the NSA was basically doing Dragnet-style surveillance basically on everybody, collecting metadata from all different types of sources. And so, basically, they're collecting information on everybody. But this is saying that they were actually targeting Trump Tower, even Trump's employees, and doing it for, off and on, at least, for a number of years, apparently, according to this. And who knows, we'll have to wait and see what happens with this. But this would absolutely, this would be bombshell if this was true. If this is true, this means that Trump was being surveilled all the way back during George W. Bush's presidency. So, wouldn't that be bizarre? Who knows, again, there's all kinds of crazy stuff going on. They like to make fun of, Kellyanne Conway comes out and says, well, you can be spied on through your microwave, which, sounds ridiculous, but the CIA director a few years ago came out in Wired magazine, I think, and said, we can spy on you through your washing machine. And the leaks from WikiLeaks, the Vault 7 leaks, was this big data dump of CIA information that showed how, ways that the CIA obtains information from people, all these different techniques. And in it, it was saying that, they can listen to your conversations through your smart TV, through other smart devices. But they just like to make it seem like it's just some big joke, oh, no one's ever spying on you, which is just not true. It's just absolutely not true at all. The NSA is constantly collecting metadata basically on everybody. That doesn't mean that there's always, somebody sitting there watching you as you're watching a movie and eating popcorn. That's not what that means. It does mean that metadata is collected on you, and they can go back and look into it if they want to. So, again, it's maybe a bombshell revelation, may not be, I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. So, sorry, hopefully the suspense doesn't kill you. And now we move on to an article from the Washington Examiner. Trump launches war on, quote, sanctuary cities, rapists and murderers let free. That's no good. The Trump administration Monday opened a war on so-called sanctuary cities, claiming that they regularly release violent criminal illegal immigrants onto the streets where they go on to commit more crimes and jeopardize public safety. In a new report from the Department of Homeland Security, the administration identified 118 cities and jurisdictions that have legally declared themselves sanctuaries, and revealed that in just one 7-day period, 206 illegal criminals were released, including those charged with murder, rape, gun violence, wife beating, and sex abuse. Sounds like a wonderful bunch. There is a clear public safety issue here, quote unquote, said a senior DHS official. Officials said that as the department steps up its campaign to deport illegal criminals, the numbers will, quote, increase tremendously. President Trump has vowed to cut funding to the jurisdictions that ignore requests from the Enforcement Division of Immigration and Customs Enforcement for access to criminal illegals held in jails. The detainer request, quote unquote, typically lasts 48 hours and is a step towards deportation. Quote, when a jurisdiction declines to honor an ICE detainer or request for notification, a criminal alien is released into the community where he or she has the opportunity to commit additional crimes rather than being safely detained and processed for removal by ICE, said the weekly DHS report that was requested by a recent Trump executive order. For perspective, DHS said most detainers are respected. The 206 refused were out of 3,083 requested. When it was suggested that the 206 is a small percentage, the DHS official pointed to the, quote, very significant impact those 206 had on their victims. Most criminals are not one-time offenders, so there's a clear public risk, said the official. And really, it's not about the number of people. There shouldn't be a single one of them, being let off the hook for any of this stuff. Or released back into the public, under any circumstance, when you're talking about these types of violent crimes. So it's really good to see them actually starting to point this stuff out and move towards really cracking down on these sanctuary cities, because, it's a clear violation of federal law. And you've got, the state of California, for example, that's asking for billions and billions of dollars of federal money while openly supporting sanctuary city policies. So you just can't have your cake and eat it too when it comes down to that. And it's good to see that we have an administration that is willing to actually put its foot down. And now we move on. Oh, and by the way, and immigration is down like 40 or 50% or something like that since Trump went into office, and we don't even have the wall yet. So that's pretty incredible. I just thought I'd throw that in there. And now we move on to my last article for the day. This is from the Daily Mail, and I always hoped there would be some kind of a cool, if there's going to be an apocalypse, I was hoping let it be like the zombie apocalypse. I've been preparing for that for like my whole life. I played all these Resident Evil games. I watched The Walking Dead and stuff. I'm ready. I'm ready for the zombie apocalypse at least. This wouldn't be as fun of an apocalypse. I don't think. Not on my scale of apocalypses. From the Daily Mail, terrifying insect-sized robots could render humanity extinct, quote, by the end of this century, expert warns. So that sounds like a bunch of fun. Despite being just the size of an insect, tiny military weapons being developed by the military have incredible power and hundreds of tons of TNT. Oh, have the incredible power of hundreds of tons of TNT. Excuse me. In a new book, Luis Del Monte, a physicist from Minnesota, warns that these tiny weapons, dubbed nano-weapons, could lead to the most destructive world war yet, which could spell the end for humanity. And this isn't just a long-term worry, as Mr. Del Monte has warned that the tiny weapons could render humans extinct by the end of the century. Mr. Del Monte believes that the advancement of nanotechnology could be even more dangerous than conventional nuclear weapons. The US, Russia, and China are all currently investing billions in research, according to his book, Nanoweapons, A Growing Threat to Humanity, which is published by the University of Nebraska Press. This technology, which could create lethal insect-sized weapons, will incite world governments to compete in the deadliest arms race ever, Mr. Del Monte says. Nanoweapons are the most likely weapons to render humanity extinct in this century, he writes. This is not a philosophical issue. This is about whether you and yours will survive through this century. So a little bit of extreme rhetoric there from this guy. The events that most people consider likely to cause humanity's extinction, such as a large asteroid impact or supervolcanic eruption, or zombie apocalypse, come on guys, actually have a relatively low probability of occurring in the order of 1 in 50,000 or less, Mr. Del Monte writes. Obviously, nanoweapons are at the top of the list, having a 1 in 20 chance of causing human extinction by the end of this century. I wonder how he got to that metric. This prediction was, that's how we got to it. This prediction was made in 2008 by experts at the Global Catastrophic Risk Conference at the University of Oxford, who said molecular nanotechnology was one of the most likely ways that humans would be exterminated. Funny, I just answered my own question there. Although Mr. Del Monte comments that some of his predictions might sound like they are right out of Star Trek, he says that factually a new arms race is underway. The superpowers of the future will be those nations that with the most capable nano weapons, he claims. So, yeah, we'll all just wipe each other out with a little bit of nano weapon love. That'll be wonderful. Who knows? I know, this technology is going to advance. It's going to happen. So hopefully the people that, are behind the biggest advancements in technology, the biggest, the most innovative new forms of technology, hopefully they are the people that have the moral high ground. Hopefully they are the people that will use technology to empower humanity and not, eradicate it from the face of the earth. You've got people like Elon Musk who comes out and says that humanity basically needs to merge with AI or we will basically become obsolete. So, yeah, technology is going to advance. We're going to merge with, technology. It's up to us to basically decide whether that technology actually empowers us or enslaves and or, eradicates us. So, with that, I will bid you all adieu. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I hope you will subscribe. Leave a comment if you would like. Leave any sort of criticism, constructive, hopefully, or any other types of comments. And I hope you stay tuned. There will definitely be more in the future. If you got any suggestions about things you'd like to hear me talk about, please let me know. And be sure to follow me on Twitter, check me out on Facebook, and I also have stuff on SoundCloud. I have links in the description for all those. So I hope you all have a wonderful day, and may the force be with you.